You think you are awake. You think the things you worry about, money, reputation, the news feed scrolling on your phone, are real. But 2,400 years ago, a man named Plato wrote down a terrifying truth. He didn't predict the internet or the economy, or the wars we fight today. But he predicted you. He argued that everything you think is real is nothing more than a shadow on a wall, an illusion designed to keep you quiet, obedient, and asleep. In his masterpiece, The Republic, Plato describes a cave, and in this cave there are prisoners. They aren't in prison because they committed a crime. They are in prison because they were born there. They don't know they are trapped, so they never try to escape. That is the problem we are solving today: how to realize you are in the cave, and more importantly, how to walk out. Welcome to Emperor Mind. This channel is built for one purpose: to merge psychology and philosophy, to spread wisdom, and to elevate your consciousness above the noise. If you are ready to stop looking at shadows and start seeing the truth, join this community. Hit that subscribe button. Become part of the few who actually want to wake up. Now, let's look at the chains. The prison of perception. Imagine a cave deep underground. Inside, there are people who have been prisoners there since childhood, but these are not ordinary prisoners. Their legs and necks are chained so tightly that they cannot move. They cannot even turn their heads. They can only look forward at the cold stone wall in front of them. Behind them, far above, a fire is burning. Between the fire and the prisoners, there is a raised walkway, like a stage, and along this walkway, people are carrying objects: statues of men, figures of animals, tools of stone and wood. Now think about the physics of this place. The fire casts light on these objects, and the objects cast shadows onto the wall in front of the prisoners. The prisoners cannot see the fire. They cannot see the objects. They cannot see each other. All they have ever seen are the shadows. To them, the shadows are not illusions. The shadows are the truth. When a passerby speaks, the echo bounces off the wall, and the prisoners believe the shadow itself is speaking. They give names to these shadows. They study them. They reward each other for predicting which shadow will come next. The one who remembers the sequence of shadows best is considered the smartest, the leader, the expert. But they are experts in nothing. They are geniuses of illusion. Plato asks us, are these prisoners not like us? This is the terrifying question. Because you, my friend, you are looking at a screen right now. You are watching images of life, not life itself. You worry about opinions that do not exist outside of a server. You chase rewards that vanish when the power goes out. We are all born into the cave of culture. We are taught what is successful, what is beautiful, what is right by the shadows projected on our screens. We fight over shadows. We kill for shadows. We spend our entire lives trying to catch them, never realizing that the real world is happening behind our backs. The agony of awakening. Now, imagine the chains are broken. One prisoner is compelled to stand up. For the first time in his life, he turns his head. He looks towards the light. And what happens? Does he rejoice? Does he celebrate his freedom? No, he screams in pain. Plato tells us that the sudden light burns eyes that have only known darkness. The movement causes sharp agony in muscles that have never been used. He is confused, dizzy, and terrified. He looks past the shadows and sees the fire itself. He sees the statues and the people carrying them. But because his eyes are watering from the glare, he cannot see them clearly. They are blurry. They look fake. He looks back at the wall. The shadows are sharp. The shadows are distinct. The shadows are comfortable. And in that moment of confusion, a terrifying thought enters his mind. The shadows are more real than this. This fire is an illusion. The wall is the truth. Plato says the prisoner would try to run back to his chains. He would fight to return to his seat. Why? Because the known misery is safer than the blinding unknown. This is the most profound lesson on human nature ever written. We claim we want the truth, We claim we want to change our lives, but when the truth hits us, it hurts. When you first try to quit an addiction, you don't feel free. You feel sick. When you leave a toxic relationship, you don't feel happy. You feel lonely. When you challenge your own beliefs, you don't feel smart. You feel stupid. The light hurts, and because it hurts, most people turn around. They run back to the shadows. They run back to the comfort of the lie, because the lie doesn't ask them to suffer. The ascent to reality. The path out of the cave is not a comfortable road. Plato describes it as a steep and rugged ascent. The prisoner does not walk out willingly. He is dragged. He is forced to climb. And when he finally steps out into the world above, he is blinded again. The sun is too bright. His mind cannot process the reality. So, what does he do? He looks down. At first, he can only look at shadows and reflections in the water. They are easier to see, but these are real shadows cast by real trees and real men, not the fake puppets in the cave. Slowly, his eyes adjust. He looks at the objects themselves. He looks at the night sky, the moon, and the stars. And finally, he dares to look at the sun. In Plato's philosophy, the sun represents the good. It is the source of all truth, all reason, and all life. Just as the sun makes things visible to the eye, the truth makes reality visible to the soul. In this moment, the former prisoner realizes the magnitude of the lie he lived in. He remembers his old cellmates. He remembers the honors and praises they gave each other for guessing which shadow would come next, and he feels a profound pity. He realizes that the richest man in the cave is still a beggar. The most powerful king in the cave is still a slave. He would rather be a servant in the real world than a ruler in the world of illusions. He is free, but his journey is not over, because a true philosopher does not just find the light, he must decide what to do with it. The return and the price of truth. But Plato does not let the philosopher stay in the sunlight. He does not let him live happily ever after. He tells him, you must go back. Why? Because wisdom is not a trophy you keep on a shelf. Wisdom is a responsibility. You must go back down to the cave and try to free the others. But here is the twist. And this is the most practical lesson you will learn from this book. When the philosopher returns to the cave, his eyes are no longer used to the darkness. He stumbles. He looks awkward. He cannot predict the shadows as fast as the prisoners can. And the prisoners, they do not admire him. They laugh at him. They say, look at him. He went up and he came back with his eyes ruined. The journey upwards has destroyed him. If he tries to free them, if he tries to explain that their reality is a lie, they do not thank him. Plato writes that if they could reach him, they would kill him. This is the lesson for your life. When you finally decide to change, when you stop drinking, when you start a business, when you seek higher knowledge, do not expect applause from the cave. Your old friends will say you have changed. They will say you are no fun anymore. They will mock your discipline. Why? Because your freedom reminds them of their chains. Your light makes their darkness look darker. Plato is teaching us that the path to wisdom is a lonely path, but you must walk it anyway. Do not be angry at the prisoners. Understand them, pity them, but never, ever let them drag you back to the wall. You have seen the sun. You cannot unsee it. The escape from the cave is not merely a physical journey. It is an internal war. To understand why we stay chained, we must look at how Plato deconstructs the human soul. He saw that within you there is not one voice, but three. Imagine a mythical creature, a combination of a wise human, a spirited lion, and a multi-headed wild beast. This is the architecture of your mind. The multi-headed beast represents your appetites, your hunger for food, sex, money, and the cheap dopamine hits of the cave. It is irrational, never satisfied, and it is the heaviest chain holding you to the wall. The lion represents your spirit, your courage, your pride, and your sense of justice. It is the part of you that gets angry when you are treated unfairly, the part that seeks honor. And finally, there is the human, the reason, This is the smallest part, but it is the only part capable of seeing the sun. Most people live in a state of internal anarchy. They let the multi-headed beast starve the human and bribe the lion. They spend their lives feeding their lowest desires, using their intelligence only to find better ways to stay in the dark. Plato's value lies in this realization. Justice in the soul is when the human leads, the lion protects that lead, and the beast is kept in check. You cannot destroy the beast, but you must not let it hold the keys to your life. The reason you feel stuck, the reason you return to the shadows even when you know they are lies, is because your internal beast is screaming for the comfort of the fire. To walk out of the cave, you must first win the war within. You must starve the beast, train the lion, and empower the human. Only when the human part of you is in control can you begin the steep ascent. Discipline is not a punishment. It is the act of handing the reins of your life back to the only part of you that can actually see the truth. To move further into the light, we must address the ultimate mechanism of control, the difference between opinion and knowledge. Plato illustrates this through the analogy of the divided line. Most people spend their entire lives in the lowest realm of existence, which Plato calls akasia, the realm of shadows and reflections. In the modern world, this is the realm of the digital image, the carefully curated social media profile, and the propaganda of the evening news. It is a world of appearances where we do not even see the objects themselves, only the filtered versions of them. When you argue with someone online about a headline neither of you has researched, you are fighting over shadows. You are operating at the lowest level of human consciousness. One step above this is pistis, or belief. This is where you see the actual objects in the cave, the statues, and the fire. You have common sense, you have practical skills, and you have strong convictions. But you still do not know why things are the way they are. You have beliefs, but you do not have proof. You are still inside the cave, even if you are standing near the fire. To leave the cave, you must cross the divide into the realm of the intellect. This begins with dianoia, or mathematical reasoning. This is the stage where the prisoner looks at reflections in the water outside the cave. It is the use of logic, geometry, and abstract thought to find universal laws. It is the realization that the world follows a mathematical order that exists independently of your feelings or your shadows. But even this is not the end. The final stage is noesis, pure understanding. This is when the mind stops using physical examples and gazes directly at the forms themselves. It is the moment you stop looking at beautiful things and understand the essence of beauty itself. You stop looking at just acts and understand justice. You finally see the sun. The value of this breakdown for you today is simple. Most of your stress comes from akasia. You are suffering because of shadows. You are anxious because of reflections. You are chasing pistis, the approval of others and the certainty of your beliefs, without ever seeking gnosis. Plato is telling you that your mind is a ladder. Most of us are sitting on the bottom rung, arguing about the quality of the wood, but the ladder was built for climbing. Every time you choose a difficult book over a short video, every time you choose a deep conversation over gossip, every time you choose to seek the why instead of the what, you are moving up the divided line. You are training your eyes to handle the brilliance of the sun, because once you understand the laws that govern reality, the shadows on the wall can never scare you again. They lose their power over you the moment you understand the light that creates them. This brings us to one of the most misunderstood concepts in the history of thought, the philosopher king. Many hear this and imagine a man in a golden crown ruling over others with an iron fist. But Plato's true meaning is much deeper and far more relevant to your own personal mastery. The philosopher king is not a title given by others. It is a state of being where wisdom and power are no longer separate. In the cave, power is given to those who are best at manipulating the shadows. They are the politicians of the dark, the influencers of the illusion. But Plato argues that those who truly deserve to lead are the ones who want it the least. The person who has seen the sun has no interest in the petty honors of the cave. They have seen what is eternal, so they are no longer tempted by what is temporary. Think about the implications of this for your own life. Who is the king of your world? Is it your impulses? Is it the opinions of people you don't even respect? Or is it your reason? To be a king in the Platonic sense means to reach a level of self-mastery where you are no longer a slave to your own biology or your social environment. Most people are democracies of the worst kind. They are ruled by whatever desire happens to be the loudest at that moment. One day they want to be healthy. The next day they want the junk food. They are inconsistent because they have no ruler. Plato teaches us that the only way to find peace is to establish a just city within yourself. This means placing your highest self, the part of you that has sought the light, on the throne. This internal king does not rule for the sake of ego, but for the sake of truth. When you become the philosopher king of your own life, you stop asking, "What do I want?" and you start asking, "What is right?" You stop seeking the easy path and start seeking the heavenly way. This is the ultimate value of the Republic. It is a blueprint for an internal revolution. It tells us that we cannot fix the world, our families, or our careers until we have fixed the hierarchy of our own souls. Power without wisdom is just a more efficient way to stay in the cave. But wisdom with the power of self-discipline, that is the only thing that can truly break your chains. You must realize that the ascent out of the cave was only the beginning. The real work is staying awake while the rest of the world is screaming in its sleep. It is the ability to walk back into the darkness, to live among the shadows, but to never again believe that they are real. To conclude this deep analysis, we must look at the final warning Plato leaves us with. A warning about the ultimate fate of the soul and the concept of personal responsibility. This is the myth of air, the closing vision of the Republic. The final lesson Plato offers is not one of politics or logic, but of eternity. He tells the story of Air, a soldier who died in battle and returned to life to tell what he saw in the afterlife. But this is not a story of heaven and hell as we typically understand them. It is a story of choice. Saw that after death, souls are brought to a place of judgment. But the most striking part of his vision was the spindle of necessity. The souls were not simply assigned a new life by some divine whim. Instead, they were told to choose their next life from a vast array of options scattered on the ground before them. There were lives of tyrants, lives of famous athletes, lives of quiet peasants, and lives of animals. Plato describes a terrifying scene. Many souls, blinded by their greed in their previous life, rushed to grab the life of a powerful tyrant. Only after they had made the choice did they realize that this life of power also came with the destiny of eating their own children and suffering unbearable agony. They wept and blamed the gods, but the choice was theirs alone. The only souls who chose wisely were those who had practiced philosophy, because they had trained their reason to see past the shadows of status and wealth. They looked for a life of balance and virtue. They chose the life of an ordinary man who minded his own business, a life that others had stepped over in their rush for glory. This is the ultimate value of everything we have discussed. Plato is telling you that the cave is not just a place you are in now. It is a cycle of the soul. If you do not develop your wisdom, if you do not become the philosopher king of your own mind, you are destined to keep choosing the same chains over and over again. You will keep choosing the job that drains your spirit for the sake of a title. You will keep choosing the relationship that destroys you for the sake of comfort. You will keep blaming fate, or the economy, or your past, while the choice is lying right at your feet. The Republic ends with a simple, haunting counsel. We shall pass safely over the river of forgetfulness, and our soul will not be defiled. To stay awake in a world that is designed to make you forget, that is the great work. It is not enough to simply see the sun. You must live by its light until the very end. The chains are heavy and the climb is steep. But remember, the shadows only have power as long as you keep your back to the fire. Turn around, walk up, and once you reach the top, do not look back at the shadows. Look at the stars.